so nice being back with Thoughts About Feelings, hasn't it?
It's been so well. I'm loving it. We're back for season 2. It's pretty great.
And with some new friends and some more thoughts and some more feelings.
all the things we love.
Absolutely.
We've got some thoughts about feelings. Think of the places we can go and the people we'll meet, the things that we'll see. What do you think? Are you feeling me? Thoughts about feelings.
Thoughts About Feelings is independently funded by Mychal Threets and me, Blair Imani, and filmed at Pixel Circus Studios. Okay, so I hear you have some questions from social media.
I do. I think the first one is a really fun one. The first one is, how do you cultivate whimsy?
Okay, so somebody recently described me, I think it was at VidCon, and I was on a panel, and they described me as being part of like the Black whimsy canon, and I was like, I didn't realize that. Thank you. Like, you know, like we talk about like the Harlem Renaissance poets, we talk about hip hop creators, and then when it comes to Black whimsy, I'm right up there with you, you know? And so I thought that was really funny. And then I was like, I would kind of describe myself as whimsical. I think that first, like whimsy is just like not taking life too seriously, but it doesn't mean you lack substance. It's like you can kind of tap into that child self without, and honestly, being childish is okay too, and just like really having a good time at life. And so, how do I cultivate it? I'm a really silly person in general. Like I think back in August, I asked my audience for solicited advice about my pregnancy, knowing that it was kind of some uncharted waters that I'd be going into. But I was like, on silly goose principles, you got to do it. You know, sometimes you just got to do it for the silly gooseness. And it was a really wonderful experience. So I think also how I cultivate whimsy is like taking chances in situations and kind of letting people be messy, because the messiness of humanity is really sometimes the best part of what it means to be alive. And I think it helps me want to be alive. And yeah, I also don't think I can turn it off. Like if you asked my husband how I cultivate whimsy, it's organic. How about you?
It's just built within. I love that. That's so much fun. I love that you're in the canon of whimsy. I love that you ask people for unsolicited advice regarding your pregnancy. You're probably the first person in the history of pregnancy to actually ask for unsolicited advice regarding that. And I think for me, whimsy to me is just as being playful, as being awkward. I'm definitely awkward, so I fully lean into whimsy. I think that's how I cultivate it. It's just by embracing my awkwardness. I like to try to be the CEO of cringe. I'm always very, very late to trends. I never know what's going on. So I think really just like you said, just trying to be yourself. And I don't think you either are or you're not whimsy. You're just sometimes part of you are whimsy, parts of you are turned off. Like you said, you can never turn your whimsy off.
Nope.
Some of us can turn it off and we just have no choice. But I think just cultivating whimsy is really just trying to embrace the best parts of who you are.
Absolutely. And, you know, this is something that I think we talked about with Tony Weaver Jr., which is like just figuring out how you grow up and continue to be more of yourself, especially the parts of yourself that you felt like you had to hide because it wasn't cool. And so I think another way I cultivate whimsy is like, I'm really over trying to be cool. And I think that has made me the coolest, which is like so paradoxical. Like as soon as you stop chasing coolness, you get coolness. You know, my mom told me that's how it worked. She was like, well, just stop trying and then everybody will think you're cool. And I'm like, wow, I don't think I can do that.
That's true mom advice and is very accurate. I love what your mom has to say.
So I have a question for you. So in season 1, we were talking about social media and whether we liked our social media stardom or rise to stardom. And you were like, absolutely not. Do you still feel the same way?
I think in season 1 to now to season 2, I think I still feel the exact same way. I don't like social media stardom. I don't like any level of fame. It's just who I am. I think I'm very much a homebody. I like being at home with my cats. I like being able to go to restaurants in different places and not necessarily have people know who I am or say, hi, are you the librarian? Are you the library guy? But at the same time, it is still very, very cool that people know who I am in association with libraries. So while my mental health, my anxiety, my feelings don't necessarily like it and appreciate it too much, I do like that there are library kids, library grown-ups who are like, hey, this is a person we see who yaps and bothers us all the time about libraries and literacy and things. So I don't like it for myself, but I like it for libraries. How about you and your social media stardom?
That's a good way to put it. And I've definitely seen it in effect because when I think the last time we were hanging out was at VidCon. and we were like trying to go find a restaurant to eat at. I think we went to Bubba
Oh
Gump.
yes.
You know, not sponsored, but I love Bubba Gump. My gosh, this coconut shrimp. But anyway, well, and there's somebody just like at the crosswalk who was like, "Are you Mychal? Oh my gosh!" And they're so happy to see you. And I think that kind of takes me to how I feel about my social media stardom. I think now that I don't get as much harassment as I did when I first was starting out, and people I think are more open to talking about different things like politics and registering to vote, and a lot of the stuff that I used to talk about that felt very controversial now feels a lot more necessary, I think, to folks, even though I think it was always necessary. I think now it has like a little bit more urgency, maybe. I think that I get less shit
Yeah.
about it. I was like, wait, it's our I was about to ask if we can cuss. I'm like, it's our podcast.
You make the rules.
I get less shit about it, and it's great. But I think it's like having a bunch of friends everywhere you go, which is really cool, because I didn't always grow up with people being excited to see me out in the world. And I always felt like, how do I fit in? And I still feel that way now, but it's really cool when, so for example, I was at this motor classic with my dad. He really loves classic cars, very dadcore, you know?
Sure.
And it was like a super hot day. And so he was like, I'm going to drop you off at the entrance of the park and I'll go park and then I'll walk you down. And I'm like, Dad, like, you're 75. Like, I don't think any of us should be walking in the heat. But he's a trooper. And so he like dropped me off. And then as soon as he dropped me off, this very nice lady came up and was like, Blair, hi, how are you? I love Smarter in Seconds. Now, the classic happens in the neighborhood where I grew up, and it's in San Marino. And so I don't ever know if people are like, hi, I remember you from high school, or like, hi, from the internet. But that was really sweet, because it was like as soon as I got dropped off, I immediately had somebody to like wait in the shade with while my dad came back to the thing. And so I think that's really what I like about it. I don't love how much pressure there is sometimes.
Sure.
I think that's something that's really difficult. I think for a while, especially during COVID, I really felt like I was the begrudgingly elected mayor of a city-state, and I didn't like that, because I'm like, I didn't ask. You know, I'm obviously making videos all the time and content all the time for people to engage with, but I don't govern y'all's lives. And so I think I have to work really hard at, and a lot of social media people have to, of like fighting the parasocial side of things, but leaning in when you want to, and then kind of enjoying the community you have, because it can be a really beautiful thing. And it's really nice when the community starts finding each other. Instead of it being centered around you, it can be centered around libraries, or it can be centered around education, or taking action to support our communities. And I think that's a much healthier dynamic than it just being a cult of personality.
Yeah, it's so hard. I think in my experience, and I think I'm now 35 years old, and I've been on social media for probably almost 20 years with AIM, AOL, Instant Messenger, if you consider that to be
100%.
social media, MySpace Top 8, basic HTML coding, those sorts of things. So in a long time, I think we often forget that like social media is supposed to be fun. The whole reason it got created is so that we could be social, so we could come together. And I think that's been the hardest part of social media stardom, of even just being on social media, and the way that you and I and so many of our friends are on social media, is that pressure, is when it becomes negative, when it's not so fun. And I think that's the hardest part. But I think that's also fun, like being your friend. And I'll post things on social media sometimes, and like I talk about joy all the time. I talk about library joy. I talk about book joy, all sorts of things. But of course, lately I've been talking more and more about, like, to me, about things that matter in the world, things that some people are very afraid to talk to. And in mentioning those things, people get in their feelings, which we're all about thoughts about feelings, and people are entitled to their feelings, but they're very negative feelings. And I think even when people are negative, even when they're rude, I kind of get a funny kick out of it with our friendship, because people will make a comment. They're like, "Oh, Mychal, I really like when you just talk about libraries, when you stay in your lane about books. I know a person, you might know her too. She can teach you some things about getting smarter in seconds." So they almost try to weaponize you and our friendship to pull me to their side, when my side is really just always just fighting for all library kids all over the world. So I always just get a funny kick out of seeing those comments from people. But I think the more and more that we can return to the positivity of social media, that's when like people like you and myself, and so many other people, so many kids who want to be YouTubers and social media stars, can actually appreciate social media stardom and their platform, if they're lucky enough to get it and have that privilege.
Absolutely. And I think that's the funny thing. Like, sometimes people don't recognize that I look at a lot of the folks that we're on social media with as like our coworkers. And we know a lot of these folks in real life because we're in the same spaces as them. Like what's her? I don't know her real name. A Black Forager. Is it Alexis?
Oh, Alexis.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so like, that's somebody who like I really wanted to be connected with, but I wasn't connected with. And I think it's really funny, like you're talking about people like weaponizing, like, well, why don't you be more like Michael? Why don't you be more like, Miss Rachel? Why don't you be more like Tony Weaver Jr.? Why don't you be more? And so it's like, we know all these folks, and I think what they're doing is so wonderful. And it's like, we all have to pick. So I always say, like, we want to be active participants in making the world less terrible. And I don't think any of us should be doing that in the same way, because the world is terrible in so many ways and we have so many ways to make it less terrible. And so we just have to pick what we want to do. And I think that's good advice to anyone listening. Like, there's so many things in the world that are wrong, and it can feel so overwhelming to tackle all of them. And I like to remind people that we don't have to tackle all of them. You have to care. And I think if you're concerned about what you can do, you already care. So awesome. Step 1 done. And then 2 is to just take an active stance and role in helping, whether it's supporting food banks, volunteering at a local library, like calling your representatives, helping to educate people. And I think sometimes social media can create this pressure of everyone doing everything all the time, which can be really unsustainable. And instead we should be reminded that we're a community and that none of us are saviors, that we're all helping people save themselves and each other, but we're all helpers, bringing it back to Mr. Rogers.
We always have to bring it back to Mr. Rogers.
Hey, Blair, did you ever think, in a way, we were all raised on PBS?
Yes, whether it was Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, Sesame Street, or Arthur, PBS helped us learn some of the lessons that make us who we are today.
And it's still doing that today. Kids are learning to read, teens are discovering new ideas, and adults are finding stories that remind us what really matters.
That's the beauty of PBS. It's always been there for us. But here's the thing, it's only possible because people like you support your local PBS station.
Every member, every donation, it all helps keep those stories going. Not just for us, but for the next generation of curious minds and kind hearts.
So if PBS helped raise you or your kids, take a moment to give back. Visit pbs.org/donate and become a member of your local PBS station today.
Because being raised on PBS means we get to help raise the next generation too.
In season 1, we were talking about all these PBS shows, and then quickly into the spring and summer of 2025, so many things happened with PBS. Defunding of the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, which no longer exists now. PBS affiliates having to fight, and just reminding folks, I think you, me, and Sydney Raz, who we're also going to be talking on the podcast with, got really involved with fighting with not fighting with PBS, sorry, fighting for PBS. But oh my goodness, my favorite meme that came out of that is the people who were like, yeah, we know you didn't grow up on PBS. You grew up to be a bad person.
PBS creates good people, good eggs. That's the true breed of PBS.
And it's like, you can't spend all this time having us engage with these programs that teach us to care about our neighbors and our loved ones and strangers that we've never even met, and then expect us to stop caring all of a sudden once we grow up. And I learned a lot of folks thought Smarter in Seconds was a PBS show.
Really?
Yeah, it's not.
It
I
should
would
be.
love that. PBS, hit me up. You know where to find me. But it is still funded by viewers like you. And so is, Thoughts About Feelings and all these different projects that we're able to create. But it just makes me so sad. And so I wonder, like, what helps you keep going? Because it can really feel overwhelming.
It's so overwhelming. I mean, we've had so many of these conversations where, like, I was raised on PBS, you were raised on PBS. So many people are my PBS heroes. I mean, we're on a couch right now, the big comfy couch in Lunette. We're just both Lunette without all the clown makeup gear. I think what keeps me going, like when I think about these things, is like I'm lucky enough to be PBS's resident librarian, to have these partnerships with PBS, to talk with people like the Krapp Brothers and Brad Meltzer, and recommend books for Daniel Tiger and Lila in the Loop and all those sorts of characters. So I think I just try to remember everything that people like LeVar Burton said, people like Mr. Rogers said, saying I like you the way you are, I am proud of you. And I think that's my hope, is just that PBS will always be PBS. Even though all these laws are being passed, even though we're losing funding because of various decisions, I think even in the wake of all that negativity happening, you see thousands and thousands of people being like, what? what is happening? PBS? Why would you do anything to PBS? All they do is teach us kindness and empathy and to value learning and education. So I've honestly found it to be so positive just to hear everybody's PBS stories, to figure out like what's like who their favorite character is, what their favorite shows are, their favorite episodes. So I take solace in everybody's love for PBS, for public broadcasting, for NPR. I think so often we forget about NPR in the PBS conversation, but they're all just so important because that's how we get access to information. That's how we get access to stories. And I think for me, I love that like the PBS always says they say defund it but not defeat it, and
I
it's
love that.
and it's because they're not going anywhere. PBS is essentially perfectly fine. It's the local stations that need our help. So I love that PBS is like we're still here, we're still fighting, we're still Mr. Rogers' army of kind human beings, and we're gonna keep on going forward. I think that's what gives me peace at the end of the day.
It's been really interesting over these past several months with PBS getting defunding because I had this like, so okay, I'm pregnant. By the time you see these episodes, I might no longer be pregnant because I'm not sharing my due date, and so
Fair. Protect your
we're
boundaries.
keeping it. Yeah, I just want to protect my boundaries, and it's so easy to dox people these days, and it really unnerves me how like as soon as a baby's born, people post the baby on social media, and now you know the baby's like name, weight, location, date of birth. Now all you need is a social security card. You can open a credit card in that baby's name. You know what I mean? So I'm trying to keep that private. I mean, even
All their password security questions
literally,
laid out there.
you know the if you know my internet stuff, you know my the mom's maiden name and all that stuff. So it's just too much for me. But while I've been pregnant, I was able to film an episode of Road Trip Nation on PBS.
Yes.
And I was also able to film an episode of Rough Roughman, all from my living room with the power of the internet and streaming and stuff like that. And it's been really awesome. And the folks at WGBH who make Arthur and Molly of Denali and all these amazing shows, they sent little onesies for my baby. And
That's
it's just so
cute
sweet.
and nice.
And I think the biggest thing that's been giving me hope is like obviously bringing this baby into the world, but also wanting her to be able to have access to these different shows and programs that I grew up with as well. And just keeping that fight alive. And I think those things are really important.
Very important. No, so necessary, so huge, so crucial. And I think a question that we're trying to ask all of our guests throughout the season is, how are you really?
Ooh, how am I really? So can I tell you the biggest thing about pregnancy for me, like for my mental health, I had to stop taking, or for my like physical health, I had to stop taking my ADHD medication. I'm still allowed to be on my SSRI, Live Laugh Lexapro. Not sponsored, but
To
again.
the end.
Yes. And you know, my thyroid medication and all the things that I'm on. But being off of my Ritalin, it's actually been really interesting with my anxiety because usually I get hyper focused. Like, you know, and I think being on Ritalin, a stimulant medication for ADHD, allows me to focus better, but it also kind of allows me to focus even when I don't want to be focusing, if that makes sense. But now that I am like just kind of freeballing ADHD, I was just chilling because sometimes I'll get into a comment section and I get distracted. And so I'm like sitting in the comment section, whereas before I would have been like, you know, in the tub scrolling the comment section of Instagram, getting, you know, super amped up. I just don't have the attention span for it anymore. So I can't perseverate on the things that bother me. And so that's been really lovely. I think it's made me a braver person because I'm not as preoccupied with what people think or have to say about me. And that's been a really healthy dynamic for me. And I think something else I've been dealing with my pregnancy is just my body has changed a lot and really kind of embracing that and doing more research, but not too much research, because if you do too much research, again, the spiraling happens. And just feeling proud of myself. Like I think every day I feel really proud of myself. Even if I like nap all day, I feel like, hey, you know what I did? I helped build some cartilage. I helped do this. Or, you know, and like I think I want to take that into my postpartum era because I don't think that we need to have productivity in order to be worthy, in order to be whole people. And I've been really trying to practice that. I've also been like, you know, on the like kind of defense for postpartum conditions. And so I'm
Yeah.
actually working with Mental Health America to
Oh,
create,
very
which is a
nice.
connection I got from you. Thank
Yeah.
you, Michael. To create some Smarter in Seconds episodes about postpartum depression, postpartum paranoia, and this umbrella term called the fourth trimester, which is after baby, which is all about how your body and hormones and all these things change and all the mental health support that you can have.
Man, that's so cool and important. I don't know how many libraries have it, but there are several libraries who have, like, I think they call them mental health kits.
Oh,
And
amazing.
there are some that are like postpartum mental health kits to help people in postpartum to deal with their anxiety, to deal with their depression.
I will make
'Cause-
sure to shout that out in my episode.
yeah, hopefully.
And how are you, really?
That's a good question. How am I really? I think I would say I think half of the days is very positive. Other half of the days tend to be somewhat negative. I think we discussed in season 1 about our stories, about our mental health struggles, about myself wanting to take my own life on March 2nd, 2024. And I would say I'm doing a lot better nowadays, but I think there are also still like so many hard days. I think we've had these conversations, I think on our own, but so many people don't talk enough about what happens after you want to take your own life, and you survive and you keep on going, and that is still very, very difficult. I think people are like, oh, especially for me, like in the public eye, it's like, oh, I wanted to do this. I didn't want to be alive anymore. I felt unseen. I didn't feel worthy. But then I talk about library joy all the time. I talk about seizing one more day. And I think in doing that, it's very hard to talk about real things, to talk about struggles, because you're like, oh, I don't want to go backwards. I don't want to scare people
I don't want to
into making their
disappoint
own wrong
people.
decision.
Yeah.
Exactly. Feeling all the guilt and the shame. So dealing with all that, switching therapists, switching psychiatrists. So it's been very difficult. It's been very hard having some real hard, honest talks. I think a lot of loneliness as well. I think just trying to figure out life, figure out my next steps. I'm going to be a published author very soon, so
Yes,
trying
indeed.
to transition into doing that. I want to go back to libraries in the very near future. So all these things. So I think it's very possible that the negativity in my life could be my own doing. I maybe need to just take an actual break and stop saying that. But I think yeah. So I think how am I really is a very complicated question, and it should be. So I think I'm still seeking joy. I'm still with my silly cats all the time. One of them still has pica. She just tore through the tube that connects the
Is that when they,
dryer
like, eat
to the
random
wall.
stuff?
Yes.
Oh,
Yep.
man.
So she still has that. So she likes to basically eat my apartment. So my very expensive California apartment.
I want you to
so
know
no-
right now I'm envisioning that you live in a gingerbread house and that the cat is just eating the gingerbread
I'm
house.
pretty sure that's what she thinks as well. Only one of them has pica, so she's a troublemaker, and I think the sister is like, why are you the way that you are? We just got adopted. Don't you want to stay in this house? So no. I think I'm just trying to keep on moving forward, keep on seizing those little moments of library joy and just having fun, and then just finding solace in each and every day.
That's really beautiful. And I want to thank you because you give me so much joy and you've been so helpful just like in my life as a friend, and also as a librarian. And there's been so many conversations that I've had with my little niece. And, my family was finally able to move out of my house after the fires. They were with us for several, oh my gosh, I think 7 months, 6 or 7 months. But it was really good training ground for parenthood. But there were so many times where I was like, Michael, I need a book for this child. I need to help my niece not feel worried that the new baby's coming. Michael, I need help, helping my niece love herself and stuff like that. And so I really want to thank you because I think the other thing, sometimes too much emphasis can be placed on this when we have mental health struggles, is like, but people need you in the world. Sometimes it's hard to make yourself need yourself in the world, but sometimes it's good to be reminded of all the people that you help in the world. And so I hope you're reminded of that.
I appreciate that. No, that means the world. I mean, I appreciate your presence, your friendship in my life. I think you talking to me about your experience with ADHD is part of what led me initially to pursue a mental. Is at first what led me to get an autism assessment for myself. And the first assessment said I am not autistic. There are some things that I possibly am on the spectrum, but they ultimately said nope. You're not autistic, which essentially they said I have good communication and I make good eye contact. Both of those are lies. I think I do okay with communication, but it's taken years and years and years of practice. Eye contact, I don't do it. I've told many people I cheat when I do eye contact. I'm looking at your forehead right now. I'm looking at your ears right now. I don't look people in the eyes. So I now have
It's really convincing. Wow.
I now have a new therapist. So I'm exploring now a second autism assessment just to see what comes with that. And I honestly think if Asperger's were still like a diagnosis, I would probably be diagnosed with Asperger's.
Yeah.
But because it's not, and the various umbrella of autism that I don't know about. I'm not a mental health expert. I'm just an advocate. So all those things. But I think it's our conversations, it's our trust and our loyalty is what kind of has led me to keep on going about this. So, and it's also, I think, just having, I think we recently did an event at a bookstore.
Yes.
And a kid came up to me afterward, and because I was talking about autism, and they came up to me afterward, and they were like, I have autism too. And I'm like, I don't have autism, but I love that you feel that you trust me enough to tell me, like in a whisper, I have autism. Which is honestly why I keep on talking about it on social media and in these conversations, is because there's so many kids, there's so many grown-ups who are terrified of these diagnoses, of living a life of I think of honestly of getting answers to their questions about themselves.
I think that's really a big thing. People struggle and they have a lot of thoughts about feelings, about knowing things about themselves, knowing things about other people. And it's like a coming out experience. You know, I think coming out obviously has been predominantly used to describe LGBTQ plus identity. And there's a huge shift away from the language of coming out, more about inviting people in, that it's not on any one person to let you know something about themselves, but for you to create a safe space where it's possible to talk about those things. But I think it can really be applied broadly to other conversations, remembering the roots of it, obviously. Do we maybe have one more question from social media?
Yeah. All right, so we will return to our Q&A from our friends on social media, and let's see what the best question is. Not the best question, I shouldn't say that. I shouldn't judge these questions
all the other
on Thoughts
questions are
About
crap.
Feelings.
This is the best. I'm just kidding.
A bunch of F's and D's. And let's see. We've kind of talked a lot about a lot, but actually this is a good one. Is how do you handle compassion fatigue as
Ooh.
online activists?
Hoo-wee. That's a good one. I don't know. Okay, so I think I was explaining this to my niece. This is how I was helping her to understand that we're gonna love her as long as when the baby gets here, she's still gonna be special. She's still gonna be important. She's just not gonna be the youngest anymore. And it's because love is infinite. And I was showing her with 2 glasses of water. I took 2 glasses of water and I said, so you might be worried that this is the glass of water I have, and the water is love. And then if I pour, and then I have to pour some of that love into the baby, and so you're going to have half the love left. And she was like, exactly. And I was like, okay, great. Let's go with this. And so then I filled up the other glass and I just left the faucet running only for a little while. I understand that we're in a drought. And I was like, but love is infinite. It never stops flowing. In this scenario, my niece doesn't realize that we're in a drought and believes that the faucet is an never-ending source. So the metaphor really works. But I feel like compassion's the same way. We have infinite love and compassion. I think sometimes expressing it is where it can be difficult, or having to keep up with things can be really difficult. Like there's so many different stories. For example, there was an earthquake in Afghanistan that 800 people were impacted by, I think may have been killed by. There's crises happening in Gaza, in Congo, in Sudan, right here in the United States, globally.
Yeah.
There's a rise of fascism and white supremacy happening globally, even in Australia recently. And I think that keeping up with all those things, it does take a huge toll on the mind. And that's why I was emphasizing earlier, trying to find something, and not the lane conversation, like, people trying to weaponize, stay in your lane, but to figure out what you're good at and what you're passionate about, and then to choose something that you can do sustainably, that does make a real impact. And usually that's going to be, I think in my, experience, sometimes that's really close to home. It's not always, but it doesn't mean that we have to solve everything. We don't have to be saviors. That's a big myth. That's a big lie. We just have to be people. We just have to be humans who care and who tap into that humanity. How do you handle it?
Yeah, I think we just have to be helpers. Like we keep on talking about Mr. Rogers. This is the unofficial Mr. Rogers episode of Thoughts About Feelings. How do I handle it? I think compassion fatigue is such a complicated, such a complex thing. I don't know if it's actual fatigue of compassion. I don't feel like you could ever get necessarily tired of compassion itself. It's the work that you put into exercising your compassion, to helping all of those around you, and just feeling that sense of overwhelm as you're caring so deeply about so many people. I think you brought up Gaza and Sudan and the Congo and so many other places, and that's so much compassion fatigue. Because you like, for me, I don't know about yourself, but I get so many questions, so many comments from people who are like, "Can you tell my story? Can you do this for me? Can you do this on social media?" And it's not like them being selfish. They're just trying to take care of themselves. They're trying to save their families, and this falls into compassion fatigue. Because for me, it's just like, I would love to do as much as I can, but there's only so many time in the day. I'm going to keep on doing all I can, but I think I get compassion fatigue in worrying about them all the time and being like, oh, if I'm helping this kid, how can I get to this kid? If I'm helping this adult, how can I get to that adult? And it also comes with the backlash of social media, the negativity that we talked about earlier, and it's just saying compassion is compassion for everybody. That's why I love what you do. That's why I love what Miss Rachel does, because saying we can talk about helping the kids of Congo, of Gaza, of Palestine, and it doesn't mean that we want anything bad to happen to the Jewish children. We don't want bad things to happen to the children and people of Israel. It's just that Gaza, Palestine, Sudan, Congo, they're the ones who urgently need our help, our compassion right now. And it's just saying we're standing up, we're standing up for what's right, we're taking a stand, but we're not ignoring other people. It's not saying, you know what, yes, we don't say the children of Israel, we don't say Jewish children every single time. But we also don't talk about the American children as Americans all the time. We don't talk about the kids in the cages every single time, but it doesn't mean that we don't matter, that they don't matter, that we don't care about them. It still is that compassion. So handling that fatigue is honestly, it's just relying on your friends. It's focusing on the positive. And honestly, I think for me, it's listening to people's stories that we're trying to have compassion for, that we're trying to care so deeply about. And I think lastly, when it talks about compassion fatigue, is the only way to help yourself is to actually help yourself. To take a little break, to take some time away from social media, to nap all day for an entire day. There's nothing wrong with getting sleep and taking care of yourself. And I think recharging your batteries is the best way to take care of your compassion fatigue, so that you can keep on being compassionate and helping as many people as you possibly can in your lifetime.
I think that's really important. And I think there's a huge difference between trying to kind of manage and strategize around what to say on social media and then taking action, because sometimes they feel very similar. But when you let go of the needing to come up with the perfect statement, needing to come up with the perfect angle, needing to come up with the perfect thing that's going to make everyone happy, when in many cases that's not possible, it opens up your schedule and it opens up your heart, and also I think your mind, because it becomes more about how do we help, how do we do stuff. And so I started working, or I've actually been working with for a long time, an organization called Mary's List that I want to shout out, because they do a lot of really awesome work to support refugees, newcomers coming to the United States. And so a lot of what I've been doing, sometimes brands will gift me stuff as I've been pregnant, like, this is for your baby. And I already have something like that. And so I'll donate it to them, and helping them to fundraise, because people who are fleeing conflict, who are fleeing war, who are fleeing governments being, overthrown or toppled, like what happened in Afghanistan, they're coming to a new place and they don't have anything. And it's kind of the same thing. Like, there's so many people to worry about. Sometimes those folks are also on social media, like, can you help me with this? Can you help me with that? And so trying to also find the helpers who have already built that can be really helpful, whether it's World Central Kitchen, whether it's Mary's List. I just learned about this organization called Women for Women International. There are so many different organizations, and direct support is very important, and I will always advocate for that. But there's also organizations, and sometimes it's not about reinventing the wheel, it's about pushing it along.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us for another episode of Thoughts About Feelings. Myself, Mychal Threets, and Blair Imani. We are so happy to have you. Thank you for joining us for Thoughts About Feelings. Please make sure to keep on taking care of yourself. Ask for help. Ask for how you can help others. You are capable of being a helper, just like our friend, Mr. Rogers.
Absolutely. Make sure to follow Thoughts About Feelings Pod on Instagram. Follow Mychal Threets. Follow me if you would like. Make sure to pre-order Michael's book, because he's not going to ask you to do it, but you should definitely do it. What's the name of the title again?
The book is I Am So Happy You're Here, a celebration of library joy from Random House Kids.
And make sure your local library has it on order as well. I will see you next time.
We've got some thoughts about feelings. Think of the places we can go and the people we'll meet, the things that we'll see. What do you think? Are you feeling me? Thoughts about feelings, all the ideas we can share with the fabulous friends and Mychal and Blair. We'll think about our feelings everywhere with thoughts about feelings. Thoughts about feelings.